Sure.
All right. Welcome everyone to the CXPS a Q&A with the CX-cellence winners. So with us this week, we have Jasmine Strout from Green International, one of our CX-cellence winners. So thank you, Jasmine, for being here to join us today. Before I turn this over to Jasmine for a brief presentation and the Q&A, I do want to just briefly thank our sponsors. Of course, Client Savvy is the founding sponsor of CXPS. A&E Engineering this year, who provided a video support throughout our 2022 conference. And then gold sponsors, Brain Consulting and Zweig Group. And then Newman Munson Architects, Withers Ravenel, and Accent Imaging. So thank you to all of our sponsors for helping make CXPS possible. Jasmine, with that, I'll turn it over to you and look forward to hearing about your winning ways.
Sure. Thanks, Ryan. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for attending. I'm excited to be here. Thanks, Ryan, Alan, and Jamie, everyone who helped make this possible. Although I will say, I don't think anyone was excited to be a part of this. As my mother, she saw that I was presenting on our company's Instagram page and decided to comment on it, asking if her and my grandmother could join. I had to give her a hard no on that one. Yeah, so as a little bit of a background, I've been with Green for a little over 4.5 years, and we didn't begin this journey of really even thinking about employee engagement until about 4 years ago. I was hired to do business development for the firm, and in my interview, to be honest, I brought up some engagement and marketing ideas, which didn't gauge too much interest, but that didn't take too long. We've come a long way in a short amount of time in terms of marketing and engagement. Currently, my weekly duties take up 60%, about 60% takes up just employee engagement activities. And the company foresees it taking closer to 80 to 90% in the future. So some of the things that I'm going to go over are things that were implemented, 4 years ago, and some of them are things that were implemented during the pandemic and whatnot. So without further ado, I will share my screen here. All right. Okay, so my award submission that I put in with the CXPS was Reimagining the Possible. Just to go over briefly, so when we had created this 10-step program is pretty much what it is. There were 4 things that we wanted to accomplish. Firstly, we wanted to hinder a learning culture. We wanted transparent and frequent communication amongst employees and the company. The pursuit of high performance was important, not just for employees themselves, but the company as well, and alignment with company and individual goals. I'm going to go over these 10 steps, so we don't have to go through them all right now, but I'll start with number 1, which was to define our culture. So when we first started implementing all of this, we looked at our core values at the time, and they weren't really aligned with the direction that we thought that we were in or headed in. So what we did was we actually had a live poll in our office with some lunch, and people got to vote on what they thought our core values should be. So everything that you see in orange is what has changed for our core values: personal growth, work-life balance, teamwork, and integrity. And these were just all most popular voted core values. So it wasn't the higher ups that were determining what that might be. Another thing that we've done most recently is we've created a branding task force. A lot of people will go external to kind of reanalyze their brand, and we are headed in that direction. But we have 16 different engineers that are on this branding task force and are helping us decide, what our culture is, what we want to portray to the external, our clients, our partners, potential employees, etc. Step 2 that we had was to improve our work environment. So we send out a survey every year to our employees, just kind of asking, what is it that you're looking for? And we really read the comments on these, and we're trying to gauge what we can change and what we can rework. And one of the big things that was brought up over and over again was moving to a modern office. So we actually took the top 5 most commented changes and we implemented each of them. One of them was moving to a new office. It has a gym, a cafe, it's on the water. So making those changes. Ever since COVID, this was one recent change was, of course, we were all working from home, but it was kind of like, cats out of the bag now. We didn't want to go back, and we kept hearing that people didn't want to go back to the office full time. So now people have the opportunity where they can go into the office 1 day a week, or they can go in 5 days a week. We've given everyone in the company a $300 home office allowance to improve their home working space. That's something that was also requested or brought up as an idea time and time again. And we actually just implemented, it won't start until the next calendar year, January, but unlimited paid time off, which I haven't heard of it yet from another engineering firm, at least, or firm in this industry. So we'll see how that goes, but people are pretty excited about it. And really, when we implemented it, the point was to show that we want people to not fear taking time off. It wasn't to create this emphasis of being afraid to take time off. It was really the opposite. Step 3 was health and wellness. So we have a health and wellness program. We contribute $10 a month to everyone's gym memberships, and our insurance does the same. So every employee gets about $20 a month contributed to their membership, whether it's yoga or whatever it may be. We have bi-monthly wellness challenges. So whether if it's a nature challenge or water drinking challenge and so forth. And we have yoga classes monthly. April comes into the office, and we generally hold them outside unless it's winter. It's not great weather outside. Step 4 was to hire and promote employees aligned with our culture. So this was a big one for us because I think when people think of employee engagement, they think of all the fun things that go along with it. But this was really rewiring how we interviewed people. So, as engineers, it's hard not to ask a lot of technical questions, but we had to really think about, are we actually hiring people that fit in with our culture or that want to be a part of our culture for the long haul? We have a lot of things going on with committees. We have 9 different committees. We have a social committee that puts on at least one event per month. And so are we hiring people that are interested in going to these and joining these committees. Step 5, train staff to learn our culture and set expectations. So what you'll see here on the left is our social style chart that we have hanging up in our office. And what we do is when people start at Green their first day, they have an orientation. They take a social style test to figure out what kind they are. And we teach workshops on how to communicate with people that may not be the same social style as you. And that's something that started with our empathy committee, which also started when we started implementing this 10-step program. We used to have project managers train new employees. We changed that. So our mid-level engineers were training them for a minimum of 3 months. And it really gives them the opportunity to, show their abilities to train other people, not just project managers. And it's also given them the ability to kind of establish these relationships with new employees. We also have a culture of teaching and learning committee. So the point of this is to train other people once you've learned a skill, to pass the baton, if you will, down to someone else. So you are continuously growing and sharing ideas and opening the floor for transparency. Step 6 was personal growth. So at Green, we have these things called green envelopes, and they are just that. They are actual green envelopes that will either show up in your inbox or on your desk about 4 times a year, and a lot of them are catered to personal growth. So for example, on your right, you'll see for our green envelope for the winter 2022, we gave everyone $30 to expense to accomplish during the year's goals. A lot of them are catered towards that. We have other ones. We have a food truck party that's coming up next month, and they're always a surprise. So we have a bi-monthly book club which really depends on what book you choose, but sometimes we get a lot of interest on those. We have yearly vision boards every January. We get together and we have appetizers and bring magazines and put together what our, future goals are for the upcoming year. And we have this thing called Masterclass Thursdays. It used to be called TED Talks Thursdays, but I think we went through every TED Talk video known to YouTube. So we had to change it to Masterclass, which is they teach a series of classes on cooking skills, learning how to empathize with people, and so forth. And we always celebrate National Wellness Month. It's in June every month. And this year we did daily affirmations, and we had a wellness challenge where everyone could win, and so forth. Step 7, create culture of accountability and feedback. So like I mentioned earlier, we have our yearly employee satisfaction survey, where this isn't the best firms to work for survey where we're just trying to, aim for an award. We're really trying to gauge what direction we should take for the following year. One thing that got brought up time and time again in our most recent survey was people wanted an employee recognition program. I think especially working remotely, it was kind of hard to keep that going like we were able to when we were all together in the office. So with this program, we use Nectar. It's a software where you can send people points and thank them for things that they may have helped you with throughout the week. And those points turn into the value of money. So you can spend that on Amazon or gift cards or swag, whatever that may be. And we also changed our feedback survey to be a 360-degree. We used to have it so the higher ups were really focused on analyzing and giving feedback to the younger employees, but we've decided that 360 is really the way to go for us for transparency purposes. Step 8 is to communicate, of course. So we recently implemented what's called Yammer, and I guess you can imagine it as if you were to join a group on Facebook. Yammer is an outlet where people, let's say, they can join the cooking page, and if they cook something that they enjoyed over the weekend, they can share the recipe. And it really is just a great way to keep people together. Let's say they went camping and wanted to share on the outdoors page, where they camped, and it just keeps communication flowing outside of just work communication. We have a monthly newsletter that goes out. On the right, you'll see an example where our CEO gives a message each time. They were daily during the pandemic, then we moved them on to weekly, and now they are monthly. We also give a quarterly update, which is more on financials, where the company's at, hiring more people, and so forth. Step 9 is to track progress and success. So you'll see here in 2018, but after we applied for the Best Firms to Work For award, we did not place. But since then, consecutively every year, we've ranked higher as a Best Firms to Work For in the civil engineering category. So we are currently number 11, and we are number 4 in the 100 to 199 employees category. So this is kind of how we track ourselves and how we're doing. We find it to be the most effective way. And step 10 is just to sustain this engagement model. So it's just going back through it every time we send out a survey, at the beginning of each calendar year, just going through and seeing what we can do better, getting more feedback from our employees, and taking steps from there. So that is everything. I'll stop sharing my screen, and I'll open the floor to any questions or comments.
Thank you, Jasmine. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I have a question while others are maybe formulating theirs. You did a survey to all of your employees asking what they wanted, and then you made some changes based on that. Was there any
Yes.
fear from leadership going into that kind of a broad ask?
Oh gosh. Well, I think the fear was more at the very beginning when we had, when the CEO Co and I had presented this to everyone to begin with. And, there's always some people that are more analytical and think about what about this, what about that. But, at the point where we had sent out the survey asking people what they had wanted. We had structured it in a way of already adding about 20 to 30 different ideas of what those things could be. So feasible things like at the time, we didn't even have like a real coffee machine. That was actually one of the ones that was chosen, you know? So we picked them all in different in groups of what the cost would be. But ultimately, yeah, I don't remember there being any like real fear about what people ended up choosing. We knew we had to move to a new office anyways. I think Adele could speak on that.
All right. Great, great. Anyone else have any questions?
Yes, Jasmine, so you had mentioned originally you had a group of 16 engineers working on this. I want to ask a couple of different questions aligned with that.
Yeah.
First is how many people are continuing to work? Is it still a group of 16 that gets together, or have you broken that down into smaller groups for different parts of the project?
Yeah, so you're talking about the branding task force that we're working on right now, which we had 16 people join. So it started off as a survey. We sent out a survey on how people view our brand or what we're trying to become as a brand. At first we had the presentation, then the survey, then we allowed people at the end of the survey to join the branding task force if that was something that interested them. And yeah, it hasn't changed. It's still 16 people. It's, you know, we're targeting all right now, we're working on what our tagline should be. We're also going back and forth on what we should do for social media for adding posts or incentivizing engineers to write these posts or to help us with different ways of not just getting pictures, but also like actually taking the time, because blogs and posts, they take a lot of time. And as marketers, we just don't know as much as an engineer would for a project that they're working on. So I found that they really like being able to have a voice. We in each meeting, they're every other week, they're an hour long, and we put people into groups now where they kind of go off and have their discussions on a bullet point that we give them, and then they come back and they're giving us action items on what they think we should be doing.
Excellent. And what kind of roadblocks, not just with the branding, but with the each phase, I guess, of the way, what kind of roadblocks have you seen popping up that have made implementation difficult throughout the process?
I would say more than anything, just a difference of opinions. I've noticed that specifically in the branding. I've also noticed being really careful of some people have really loud voices and some people have soft voices, but it doesn't mean that one's greater than the other. And so there's different ways of which we've tried to get feedback. You know, we started putting little boxes in the offices where people can just write down something anonymously and stick that in. And some people will just call me on a whim and have an idea on something, you know, so everyone's different. But yeah, I think it's just really, I think that just it's little things like I got an email maybe 3 months ago. Someone was concerned that our Keurig box, like all the recycling, it was just going all in the trash. So it's just little things like that too that are big concerns for people. So yeah, it's just taking every concern with equal value, I think is what it is.
And that kind of leads me to my last question. How individualized, how granular do you get with the personalization of some of the rewards that you're giving out? Or do you try to kind of categorize it more?
Yeah. Well, so it depends what kind of rewards. Like with our employee recognition program, you know, this all the points that they get, because they're basically it's like a Facebook feed. So you're thanking that person and then you give them however many points you want, and 50 points is $5 and they can do what they want with that. So if they want to just go on Amazon or get a gift card or whatever, but then there's other, you know, incentives like doing a monthly challenge. Of course, you can get a reward with that, but that's if you participate. So it's leaving it up to that person. It depends on what it is. Yeah, that's a good question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Alan. There's a string of questions there. Anyone else have any questions for Jasmine about the work that she and Green has done on employee engagement and employee experience? I've got a couple more. I just wanted to not monopolize the conversation. I was really interested in your talk about how you're better assessing cultural fit during the interview process.
Yeah.
Can you share an example question or technique that you employ during the interview to better figure that out? I think it's one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah, so more on the technique side, we have a interview form that's given to everyone before the interview, and or they'll just have it on their computer already. But what we did was we took that form and we basically reorganized it. So now about half of the form is technical questions that you could be asking, and half of it is cultural questions that you can be asking. And I think we're always mindful in our interviews to ask them what they're looking for in a culture beforehand, because it's so interesting. Some people they really are interested in green because they love all the involvement that they can do, but some people really just want work to be work and they like working from home for that reason. And so it's really helped us, asking that specific question has helped us gauge what people are looking for before we're giving them this whole spiel about who we are and what we do and what our culture is like.
Right.
Not sure why that muted. Sorry.
You're good.
Last question I have. We also moved to unlimited PTO 2 years
Nice.
ago. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And in the research I had done on that, one of the downsides I heard was that people would be afraid to actually take time off.
Yeah.
So did you do anything to make sure people are taking time off, recharging, spending time on their mental health, anything like that?
Yeah, so it won't be implemented until the next calendar year, so January. But what we did was we created a presentation and what that would look like. Our CEO, presented it to the company, and we created it. Everyone needs to take a minimum of 3 weeks off, but we were we were really careful in how we presented it, because it can be like something that really scares people away, or it could be something that people are like, okay, I can take more time off. We Yeah, so I think it was just the way of which we explained it to everyone. And I remember one of the things that was mentioned was, you might not believe it, but some of the younger staff were asking questions, and yeah, the response was, you might not believe it, but some people actually don't take the time off that's given to them. I think it's harder for younger engineers to believe that because of our generation a little bit, but it's kind of like, use your common sense. But the point of this is to take the time off that you need. It's not to go the other direction. So we'll see how it goes. I'd love to talk to you more about that, because we kind of just, took a chance on it, really, if you will.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We put two things in place. Everyone's required to take one consecutive week off a year. Like, use the time
Oh,
whenever you need it,
nice.
but take one consecutive week off, at
Yeah.
the very least.
Yeah.
And then every 5 years, there's a paid 1 month sabbatical that you have to take. And
Okay.
we'll turn your email off and get you to like really truly unplug. So
Yeah.
uh,
Oh, that's great.
yeah,
Awesome.
it was great. I went first. I did mine this summer, so I was the first one to get to go. And I haven't taken a month off since I was in high school, So that was
Oh my gosh.
it was pretty
Wow.
incredible.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, great. Yeah, I think those details are important to work in. Otherwise, people get a little confused on what they actually can and can't do.
Yeah, yeah, we're still very much in the experimentation phase, like you. So I'm not sure
Yeah.
I've got it figured out, but kudos to you to make sure people are taking off at least 3 weeks and using
Mm,
that time. I think that's a good balancing act to make sure people are feeling comfortable that they don't just have to work themselves.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing too is we used to have we would have vacation time and then we would have sick time, but we gave a lot of sick time. But the employees that didn't have families were hardly using the sick time, but the employees with the families were using it. So this kind of balances it out, like take off
Yeah.
what you need to, how you want to, you know?
Yep. That's great. That's great.
Good.
Well, we're at the end of our time. Jasmine, thank you very much for doing this. I appreciate
Thank
you
you.
sharing your insights, particularly sharing insights about what you're doing inside your four walls. I know a lot of firms are a little more protective about their secret sauce. So thank you, and thank the whole green community for revealing what you're doing and the great work you're putting in place to create a great place to work for. Number 11 on that list from Zweig is a very notable achievement, and
So
congratulations on that.
thank you. Thank you so much for having me, you guys. Thanks, Alan. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks.
All right. Well, thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Bye.
Bye.